Yes.
Namaste, everyone. Welcome back to our satsangs on psychic being.
Hello, Kalsha Madu. So,
So, we have been going through a Swadhyaya series on A.S. Dalal's Emergence of the Psychic Being. This book is an excellent introduction to psychic being and the sadhana of psychic being and the guidance of Mother and Sri Aurobindo on the subject of psychic being. We have gone through several talks already. I will give a brief recap of some of the topics we have touched, and then we will continue. We have a fairly ambitious series of topics to cover today. We expect to cover it probably in about an hour and a half, including the meditation. That is the plan for this evening. Psychic being is a word that is specifically used by Mother and Sri Aurobindo to refer to Antaratma. They did not use the word soul because the word soul has kind of many connotations and it has its own set of interpretations and preconceived imagery. So Sri Aurobindo and Mother used a technical term called psychic being, or in Indian languages, Chaitya Purusha. Chaitya Purusha is the word that is used for psychic being in Hindi and Telugu. As a specific description of what they mean by psychic being is a projection of the divine consciousness into matter, to awaken matter out of its inertia, so that it takes the path back to the divine. So it is the spark of the divine. We keep saying, there is a spark of God in each of us. So that spark is what Sri Aurobindo and Mother refer to as the psychic being. Location-wise, they have described and told us that it is somewhere in the center of the chest, deep behind. The sadhana of the psychic being essentially means that when there is a spark of the divine, how do we bring the light of that spark into our daily living? How do we get in touch with it? For most of us, it's a very theoretical thing. Oh, there is God inside everybody. We keep saying, but these are casual phrases without any meaning or purpose, unless we realize that it is possible to get in touch with the spark of the divine in us and bring that spark to the front of our personality. And this is the sadhana of self-realization. This is the sadhana of psychic being. In the initial parts of our unconscious living, before we turn to the path of spirituality, our emotions, our thoughts, our desires, our somewhat of a contradictory set of human will, these are all at play in our nature. And when all of this is going on, it is difficult for the psychic being to give guidance. In other words, we cannot receive the guidance of our soul, of our antaratma. We are just living. Gradually, as we work on various aspects of our personality, the psychic being comes forward. The rays of its light help us lead a spiritual life, help us lead a life of ethics, morality, and spirituality. But for that to happen, we have seen in the earlier talks also, the Mother has always said that there is a strong will and a sustained effort that is needed. The sustained effort can range anywhere from 6 months to 30 years, depending on the intensity of our seeking. The Mother and Sri Aurobindo have also given a number of behavioral patterns, attitudes that we can develop in our own self, so that it is possible for the light of the psychic to guide our journey. In the previous class, we talked about enthusiasm, a certain positivity, a sense of gratitude. All of these help bring the attributes, the characteristics of our soul into our personality. Mother gives a lot of them, a sense of beauty, a sense of harmony, a feeling of eternity, a joy, a certain goodness in our living. All of these things, as they become more prominent in our personality, it is easier for the psychic being to come forward. When we live surrounded by strong emotions, jealousies, insecurities, fear, anger, competitiveness, hyper egoistic or egocentric behavior, all of these things, they suppress, they darken our personality, and the light of psychic being does not come out. We also discussed in the previous session a little bit of some of the experiences of individuals who have had this psychic contact. In this class also, we will try to take a few examples of experiences and things like that. So this is the recap, if you will. And this chapter, chapter 4 or section 4 as it is called, is titled The Growth of Psychic Being. I must tell you though, as we are going through these chapters by chapters, there is a good amount of somewhat of overlap, yet there is a certain progression. There are some things which we've already touched upon, which may repeat. Some of them I'm taking up again, some of them I'm not taking up again. But there is a certain sense of overlap. These are not distinct chapters where the same theme doesn't appear twice. On the contrary, the same theme appears multiple times in multiple chapters with slight variations. So we'll see how that goes along. Okay. Now, the very opening sentence of this chapter, the essence of the soul is divine, but the soul, by soul here, it is implied the psychic being. The psychic being grows through all the forms of evolution. It becomes more and more individualized and increasingly conscious of its origin. So we spoke a little while earlier how when we are living a normal mundane life, we are unconscious of our divine origin. Here, the spark of psychic grows into the psychic being. And how does it grow? It grows through all forms of evolutions. And it becomes more and more individualized. Now, this is a very important word here, individualized, individualization. There are 3 words that we will touch upon in today's talk, which are important. Individualization, interiorization, and a certain concentration on the psychic being. So we'll take up the first word, individualization. Now, it is very easy to read this one paragraph and move on, but actually, this word is a very, very important word in this entire discussion. See, many of us, we have seen television, we have Discovery Channel, which shows all sorts of things about animals and fish and plants. Now, in a primitive organization of consciousness, individualization does not exist. There is a group instinct that guides them. You may see suddenly there is like 1,000 fish and they all turn at the same time. How is it possible? Even if each talks to the other, it should take at least 5 minutes for 500 fish to turn, but they just turn at once. You've seen that. Similarly, the flock of birds in the air, sometimes the herds. There is a group instinct that is not individualized. It is not distinct. This is where our early origins are. From there came man. What do we see in man? individualization in man is through ego. The ego is surely the instrument of individualization, says the mother. So somewhere from that group herd instinct, we have moved to individual existences. And our existence is around ego. What is the problem with ego? It is constantly entangling itself with lower nature. Desire ego is the fulcrum for desire. I want, I like, I don't like. So desire and ego, Sri Aurobindo says in the small book, The Mother, if you want to be an instrument of the divine, if you want to be somebody who lives as God's instrument, two things you should get out of: ego and desire. If you want to be a true doer of divine works, your first aim must be to be totally free from all desire and self-regarding ego. So this ego helped man in some way to separate himself from this herd instinct. But today, it is the ego that has become the problem for our spiritual journey. This is the first step of self-realization, says Sri Aurobindo in Life Divine. To enthrone the soul. To enthrone the soul means to make the soul sit in the throne of our life, govern our life. To enthrone the soul, the divine psychic individual, in the place of the ego. So we have to now move from ego to divine, ego to psychic being. We have to replace the role that ego plays in our life, where everything is about I, me, and myself, and we have to offer that space to the divine inside of us. This is in some way what Mother means when she says individualization of the psychic being. But before we go further into the psychic being part, earlier we have also seen Mother talks of individualization of mental and vital also. We spoke about how a pianist, when he has particularly evolved his consciousness to a certain degree, the fingers develop their own consciousness. And even after the physical body is dissolved, there is in a subtle plane the consciousness of these fingers with the music. They exist, and when the channel is ready, if a pianist is fine-tuned, suddenly this consciousness enters this pianist. There's a long description that Mother has given this. I think we touched upon it earlier. So that is individualization at one level of this consciousness, subtle physical consciousness. Similarly, the Mother says, when we talk of philosophers, they go to a certain degree of maturity that the mind in its individualized capacities can survive for some time beyond the dissolution of the body in the subtle world. And when someone opens to it, it can influence them. So this is how, when each part of our being surpasses itself and arrives at a stage of supreme refinement, either in aesthetics or in intellect and so on and so forth, it is possible for it to survive and sustain in the subtle world on an individualized basis. Now, a similar principle applies to the psychic being. Most of these are Mother's words, and some of these are Sri Aurobindo's words. I'm not individually going to clarify each one. When the psychic is fully developed and very conscious, when it becomes a conscious instrument of the divine will, it organizes the vital and the mind in such a way that they too participate in the general harmony and can be preserved. What is Mother saying here? As the psychic becomes conscious, it can take the emotional being and the mental being, and as it takes them and purifies them and elevates them, they can be preserved in the general atmosphere. The psychic is the spark that is permanent and gathers around itself all sorts of elements of for the formation of that individuality. The true psychic being is formed, is fully grown, fully built up around the eternal divine spark. So as we work on developing contact with the psychic being, as we work on nurturing and purification of our emotions and our thoughts, gradually a certain psychic individuality, a psychic personality begins to form. Further, individualization, the capacity to take up all experiences and organize them around the divine center. We spoke earlier how when the psychic being takes birth, it takes birth so that it can go through a series of experiences which will allow it to grow. Unconscious existence doesn't allow us to organize these experiences mostly around the psychic being. But a conscious effort towards it allows us to take up all experiences and organize them around the divine center. The aim of the psychic being is to form an individual being, individualized, personalized around the divine center. See, this is the complete description of that single word that was so easy to miss in the very first paragraph of this chapter, individualization of psychic being. The idea is that we work consciously where the inner vital, the inner mental are gradually cleansed and they open to the psychic light. The outer nature gradually opens to the psychic light. As we go through life, we refer to every experience and say, did I act in the light of my psychic being or not? This is a very important exercise. Did I do what is perfectly perfect, completely correct? Or did I let my desire come in? Did I let my ego come in? Did I let my depression affect me? Did I let something else affect me? And then learn from that experience and make sure we evolve. This is what it means when we talk about organizing all experiences around the psychic center. It is a very, very painstaking, prolonged, yet this is what sadhana of the psychic being is. Some people may say, oh my God, it is so tiring, it is so long. Yes, it is. It doesn't have to be tiring, but yes, it needs us to take a magnifying glass and look at every experience. In fact, some places Mother guides us saying at the end of the day, scan through the day, look at the important parts of the day, examine whether you have worked and reacted and behaved in a way that is consistent with your highest level of consciousness. The Mother says this. And that is what it means, to learn from those reactions and then say that next time I will do better and make a mental note of it and then purify that element and then work. This is how it is to develop the individualized personality centered around the divine center. Normally, all the experiences of the external life pass without organizing the inner being, while the psychic being organizes these experiences serially. It wants to realize a particular attitude towards the divine. And as we make this effort, as we make a will, as we try to work, there comes a moment when this psychic being is sufficiently developed to have an independent consciousness and a personal will. See? This is what individualization of psychic being means. There comes a moment when the psychic being is sufficiently developed to have an independent consciousness and a personal will. You know, somewhere in Mother's agenda, Mother talks about her day. And many people come, many people meet her, literally hundreds. People were given a few minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes. And there was a stream of visitors constant. People like you and people like me, all of us. Imagine if the Divine Mother were here, would we not go? Would we not somehow make it there on our birthday and seek her blessings? Like that, people used to come. Now, we know we were going to see the Divine Mother and all the glory of hers and all of these wonderful things. There is a passage somewhere, she shares with Satprem, the author of the Mother's Agenda, what is the vision that she has? Among many things, one of the things in one passage I remember distinctly, she says, I see these gray energy formations or gray blobs of people come in and go, come in and go. There is very little differentiation. There is very little differentiation. What does it mean? We are all individualized. We are all devotees. We are all, so proud of who we are and our identity and even our devotion and our blessed life that we have come to our gurus. How unflattering when Mother is saying these so-called devotees, when they come, she's seeing these gray forms come and go. Why? In a way, we understand it. Perhaps in one way, I will share the way I view it. Here is the divine who from the highest heights of consciousness has descended upon this little blue dot floating in space called planet Earth. And the divine is watching the flows of energies that are intermixed with ignorance and inconscient and subconscient and all the dirt and darkness. And these little beings which embody that same thing coming and going in front of it. All of us carry a lot of kama, krodha, lobha, mada, moha, matsarya. Our elders simply put it in Shadripu. We all carry it. The percentages may vary. So what Mother was seeing is this unconsciousness that was coming and going in different people. If you look at it as a universal river, these energies are just flowing. I get angry, this vibration, I hold it for some time, then I pass it on to the universe. Somebody else holds it for some time. Same thing with depression, same thing with fear. It gets hold of me, somehow I get out of it, it goes. So the energies are flowing. So what does individualization mean in this context? Somewhere in my being, there is this little spark which gradually in this river of unconsciousness, a glow begins to happen. And it starts illumining, and the energies that are coming near it are forming a vortex of light. And my being is purified, and gradually there is a certain psychic being which is able to influence the physical and vital for most part. And as that being enlarges, it becomes individualized. This is individualization of psychic. And Mother could see those individualized psychics very well also. Once she talked to somebody and she said, can you not see Pranab's psychic being? It is so big, it is practically beyond his physical body. So this is how individualization of psychic being happens. And this is an important part. That is why I said there are 3 words which are important in today's talk. This whole chapter will try to understand, because this is what we are supposed to do. This is our sadhana of psychic being, individualization of psychic being, not to leave this little spark under the mountains of debris of emotions and thoughts and desires and movements and ignorance. We have to start referring every movement to that. So that is the individualization of psychic being. Furthermore, in the previous paragraph, Mother talks about normally all experiences of external life pass without organizing the inner being. While the psychic being organizes these experiences serially, it wants to realize a particular attitude towards the divine. So sometimes when you take birth, we make a choice of what we want to realize. And then Mother gives some examples. For example, who wants to have the experience of nobility, noble character? a nobility which makes it impossible for you to act like an ordinary person, a nobility which infuses into you bravery and courage. So then she goes on to give an example of how such a soul would behave. She gives an example of Queen Elizabeth, where in the last days of her life, when she was undertaking the royal protocol, when she was very weak and feeble, and one of her attendants said, "You will die if you go out like this." And she goes on to say, "We shall die later." These are things that are uncommon. So sometimes the soul may take a birth and develop a certain attitude towards the divine, and that is our job, to find out how do we go through that growth. Furthermore, in this chapter, the mother points out something. There are two steps, two phases in psychic growth. The first step of progress of psychic is about individualization, which we have spent a lot of time on. The second step of progress is working for the divine. There comes a time when the being is fully developed, fully individualized, fully master of itself and its destiny. Once he is fully formed, he is free. He can take birth or not. He can retire in pure bliss, or he can choose to be a worker upon earth to help in the fulfillment of the divine work. Then he has a fresh progress to make, a progress in the capacity of work, organization, expression of divine will. For so long as he remains in the world, so long as he chooses to work for the divine, he will progress. So on one side is the individualization and full formation of psychic being. This is what we can call self-realization, which itself is a lofty goal. And once we reach there, those beings can come down again to work for the divine. There was an example of a disciple of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, which one of my friends shared recently with me. In fact, I might as well mention, this is about MP Pandit, whose birthday was the 14th of June. He passed away in the early 90s, 1993, I think I remember. Now, many years later, one of the sadhaks meditating in the ashram saw him. And he looked very different. Though he identified him as MP Pandit, he looked very different with a very big beard and all of that, whereas he was clean shaven, when he was in the ashram and all that. So when the sadhak asked him, "How come?" He said, "This is my original form from the Upanishad days. I was a rishi at that time. I came down to work for the Divine Mother." So there are beings that are self-realized, that come down from time to time when great souls incarnate to take the work forward. So anyway, we will go further. Talking further about psychic growth. How can one make one's psychic personality grow? This is the question asked of the mother. It is through all the experiences of life that the psychic personality forms, grows, develops, and finally becomes a complete and conscious and free being. This process of development goes on tirelessly through innumerable lives, for that is the indispensable starting point. Through interiorization and concentration, one has to enter into conscious contact with one's psychic being. The second and third words. Through interiorization and concentration, one has to enter into conscious contact with one's psychic being. We'll spend a little bit of time on each of these words. Interiorization. Earlier, when we were talking in the introductory sense of psychic being, we took up one sentence of the mother where mother said, the psychic being exists in a different dimension. It is not in the 3 dimensions. It is not in the physical dimension. You may remember that. Interiorization, the mother says, is the process of passing into another dimension or other dimensions. What it means is that in our very first talk, we discussed 3 aspects of our being. We know the outer being, which consists of thoughts and emotions and body, physical, vital, and mental. And we knew that the mother talked of psychic being as the inmost being. And then we said between the two is the inner physical, inner vital, and inner mental. And when we said from outer we go to inner, and from inner we go to inmost. This is the process of interiorization. When we sit for meditation in the first few minutes, our entire consciousness is around the body. Are my legs comfortable? Is my back okay? Am I doing all right? And then it takes some time to move from the physical consciousness to the mind. Normally, our meditation is centered around the mind. That is one level of interiorization. And psychic being is very deep within. So one has to move from the physical to a little bit into the outer mind, where initially the mind is scattered in the beginning part of the meditation. All through the day, whatever we did, those thoughts come to us. Then after some time, the mind calms down. So already there are 2 steps here. From physical to the outer mind scattered everywhere. And then with a little bit of breathing and calming down, we move from the scattering to peace and silence. That is the inner mind. And again, we need to move further from there. Move towards the heart center. It's almost as if we are drawing this consciousness from out to the surface, to the inside, and gradually move it deeper and deeper and deeper into the heart center. This drawing of consciousness deeper and deeper into ourselves, this is what Mother means by interiorization. We need to practice it gradually. It takes time, but just as you learn to meditate, where initially you can't sit for 5 minutes, then you learn to sit for 15 minutes. Initially, out of 15 minutes, 12 minutes, the mind is roaming around. After 10 days, suddenly you find that mind is roaming around only for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you are able to meditate, which means you are interiorizing. And now we move from the mind to the heart and deeper into the heart center. We draw the consciousness closer and closer into the depth of our being. This process is interiorization. It is possible that when we are interiorizing, in the beginning stages, we may fall asleep. Perfectly okay. 10 days we may fall asleep, but the 11th day, what happens is our sleep doesn't come, but we are able to remain aware in a state where the thoughts are completely silent and we exist in complete awareness. Or maybe instead of sleeping for 10 minutes, we sleep for 5 minutes, but our awareness becomes stronger and we are constantly aware, even if the body is sleeping. And this happens very often. The outer body may look like it is in sleep. You may even hear deep breathing going on, but doesn't matter. You are still very aware and conscious inside. This is the process of interiorization. It happens by itself. We just have to make our effort. And then comes the next word, concentration. To aid the development of the conscious psychic personality, one should, while concentrating, now Mother tells us what she means by this concentration. While concentrating, what should one do? Turn towards the psychic being. Aspire to know the psychic being. Feel the psychic being. Open oneself to receive the influence of the psychic being. And take great care that each time one receives an indication from it, to follow it scrupulously and sincerely. To live in a great aspiration, to take care to become inwardly calm and remain so always as far as possible. To cultivate a perfect sincerity in all the activities of being. These are the essential conditions for the growth of the psychic being. So normally when we say concentration, we think that somehow it's an exercise of the mind where we only keep one thought. That is a different way of concentration. Here Mother is talking about concentration on the psychic being, part 1. Part 2, she is also talking about how to keep our entire being in a particular way so that the psychic influence shines through, so that the light of our antaratma shines through our life. This also is concentration. This is the concentration on psychic being. Turn towards psychic being, aspire to know the psychic being, try to feel the psychic being deep in one's heart, open oneself to receive its influence. And when you receive a deep intimation, take great care to follow it very scrupulously and sincerely. So Mother has given many do's. There are also many don'ts that come along with the same do's. For example, no losing the temper, no getting carried away by the senses, no inner agitation, no speaking of lies or partial truths. We have to be coming in contact with the psychic being is not a sadhana of 20 minutes of meditation. It is about how do we conduct ourselves throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year. Is our outer personality breaking? Is the crust falling off? And slowly, is it becoming more malleable? Or are we carrying the same patterns we carried 10 years ago? Are we breaking that outer crust? How do we break that outer crust? Keep this aspiration. Look at every movement in the light of the psychic being. Try to find the guidance of the psychic when there is some confusion. Stop or prevent the lower nature from taking over. So we talked about 3 terms, right? We spoke of individualization, interiorization, and concentration. 3 terms. Remember these 3 terms from this chapter because the essence of this chapter is in these terms. Almost it is as if, many people I'm sure have followed and read many things. There is an exercise called Tratak. Tratak is an exercise particularly encouraged among younger people, and even for us it is a good exercise, where you light a candle and try to focus on the flame for a certain period of time. It increases concentration. It allows us to keep the distractions away and develop it is like strengthening the muscle of the mind. And particularly for teenagers, if you start doing Tratak and start with maybe 1 minute, extend it to 5 minutes and 7 minutes, and do it under some guidance. Don't go by my words or YouTube videos. It helps develop a focus. There is a similar exercise called Antah Tratak, inner concentration. And this concentration, in its traditional path, it is concentrating on different chakras of our being. Somewhere along the way, this concentration that Mother is talking about reminded me of Antah Tratak on the heart center, on Anahata Chakra, or in the heart region. Whatever we do, a part of our attention is there. And energy follows attention. So automatically our energy patterns will flow there. And as we direct more and more attention there, more and more energy goes there, and it starts working in this region, cleanses that region, allows the certain emotions and all of those, they get resolved, and the light of the psychic comes through. Elsewhere, Sri Aurobindo says, when we indulge in sex, anger, jealousy, he actually says in one of his letters, what it does is it takes our energy and redirects it to the lower chakras. And he specifically says that it takes away the energy that should go to the psychic discovery towards these lower chakras. So, the concentration that Mother says here is essentially reorientation of our life towards the single purpose of discovering our Atma, our Antaratma. That is what the concentration is that Mother is talking about. And then somebody else asked her, what are the best conditions for rapid growth? Mother gives a much broader answer. She says, all methods of self-knowledge, self-control, and self-mastery are good. All methods. Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Yama and Niyama, Ahimsa, Satya, Steya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha, Yama, Saucha, Sancho, Santosha, Tapa, Swadhyaya, Ishvara, Pranidhana, and then Shad Sampatti in the other tradition, Vaishnava tradition, Sama, Dama, and it goes on. I don't remember Viveka, Vairagya, Shad Sampatti, and Mumukshutva. Mumukshutva is a constant aspiration for seeking the divine. So Mother says all methods of self-knowledge, self-control, self-mastery, all are good. You have to choose one that comes to you spontaneously, that best corresponds to your state, to your nature. And having chosen the method, you must use your intelligent will and apply it with an unfailing perseverance. Use your intelligent will, discrimination, viveka, and apply it with unfailing perseverance. So this is the guidance that Mother gives on a broader scale. One topic that also comes in this chapter in a brief way, it is the relation of psychic being to birth and how the psychic comes here. And this particular aspect of how the psychic takes birth. And what happens to the psychic being after the physical body is dead. Maybe after we complete the study of these, we touched upon it partly earlier, so I don't want to take up in pieces. Maybe after we do the 6 chapters, maybe one session we will just compile all this and do the psychic journey and birth and rebirth and all of that. Maybe we'll take it up separately. Otherwise, I'll be doing a little bit and it won't be complete in itself. So this broadly covers the main themes of this chapter. There are a couple of other ones where Mother talks separately about a topic where she says that our understanding of reward and punishment, pap and punya, and the purpose of our life, these are all not understood properly because, we know what our traditions tell us. You do good things, you get a good life. You do bad things, you get a bad life. Or any suffering is related to some bad thing you have done in the past. These kind of things, they don't take into account the psychic growth. The Mother says the psychic will and psychic growth escape completely all notions of justice, of reward and punishment as men understand it. There are religions that tell you all kinds of stories which are simply the application of notions of human justice to the invisible world. We say what is right or wrong in this world and try to extrapolate it to invisible worlds. And she calls them stupidities. For it is not at all like that. The notion of reward and punishment as man understands it is an absurdity that does not apply at all to the inner realities. So once you enter the true spiritual world, all that becomes really stupidities. A large number of people come and tell me, what have I done in my previous birth, previous life, to be now in such and such difficult conditions? So many misfortunes are happening to me. Oh, I am ill, I am sick, my body is in a bad condition. What have I done? What crime have I committed in the other life? And most often, Mother says, I am obliged to tell them But don't you see that it is a blessing upon you, a grace? And perhaps in your previous life, you have asked for it so that you can make greater and faster progress. In the earlier example where Mother gave the example of a king, Sri Aurobindo and Mother, when they talk of the psychic progress, our conception of growth is that, okay, in last birth, if I was king, this birth I should be emperor. No, that's what we want, right? Sri Aurobindo and Mother say, in last birth, if you develop the character of nobility of a king, in this birth, you may choose the life of a servant to understand humility. That is the nature of psychic choices. They don't correspond to our idea of what is good and better and so on. I'm based in Hyderabad, and in Telugu country, Telugu states, many women do special pujas for something very peculiar. They say, if you do this puja, you will get a very good husband in next life. So they take the present husband's wealth and spend it on doing pujas for a better husband in next life. It's a very humorous way of looking at life. And what is a good life? A good life means we apply our notions of, I should have a 3-bedroom apartment instead of a 1-bedroom apartment. A good life means I should have a car instead of a motorcycle, or a BMW instead of a Maruti. Are these the notions that have any sense and purpose to the soul's journey? It is very superficial. And the difficulties we have, Mother says elsewhere, are indeed blessings, and they are the ones that you have chosen yourself for a faster growth in this life. So being in despair, being constantly hunting for reasons. I know friends who went and did past life regression. They wanted to find out what is there in my past life so that I can do something. But honestly, nobody received any major help. They learned some strange things. And also, when you do past life regression, you may see 1 life or 2 lives, but your soul's journey may be 100 lives. Let us not get carried away into it. We have to understand what Mother says, which is, there is a reason behind why nature erases all those memories. And what is required will come to you when you need it. So that is the thing about reward and punishment that Mother talks about. We need to make sure that we remember this. Each time that the soul takes birth in a new body, it comes with the intention of having a new experience that will develop it, that will help it to develop and to perfect its personality. So this is the golden truth. From birth to rebirth, what we choose. Having experiences that will help the soul grow and perfect its personality. That is the sum and substance of the entire theory of soul's development. In addition to this, like I promised you in some of the earlier talks, a lot of it may sound theoretical, so we'll try to take some experiences also. In the previous talk, we talked about how some of the sadhaks experienced unexplainable joy that is not dependent on anything outside when the first contact of psychic happened. We saw Amrita's experience also in that line. Unexplained joy. Somebody has said waves of bliss. Somebody said, I saw light in the heart region and I felt that. This is the experience of the first contact. But as we grow and as we develop, the intensity of the initial contact will fade away. And these are some of the things I've taken from the notes made by people who have had the psychic contact. The disappearance of the experience can happen within a week or a month or a few weeks or a few months. But the psychic area becomes a permanent reference with a special vibration of warmth and sweetness. So it is as if a sense of bliss, an imprint of bliss is left in the psychic region, even after the initial contact recedes. This is what some of the people who have experienced the psychic contact say. Another point they made is that discrimination between emotional and psychic feelings becomes easier. So once we experience the psychic contact, if a good emotion or a bad emotion or any of these emotions that kind of carry us away, we are able to see the difference between the psychic vibration and the emotional vibration. And we are able to stay rooted. The sense of permanence, the sense of immortality, once it comes, it remains as a flavor, as a taste. Some of the people who experience the psychic contact also observe that circumstances seem to be arranging themselves without excessive personal effort or struggle. So there is a sense of acceptance of the flow of life and things just flow. There is not as much individual struggle. These kind of notes give us a sense that we can attempt to reach and work, purify ourselves, and get in touch with our psychic being. After all, the other people who have explained this also are sadhaks and devotees and disciples of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo, just as you and me are. We will take a little digression now. Last time, about 4 or 5 days ago, I kind of shared one book. I have shared the PDF. It is called Psychic Education. I'm showing the book here. Even if you don't see it, the PDF is there in the group. Psychic Education, a workbook. This is what the title of the book is. It is based on all Mothers and Sri Aurobindo's quotation. It was compiled by a couple of senior educators who worked in Mirambika, who created Mirambika in Delhi ashram, Neelche and his wife, in 2001. And this book has many chapters on various ways that we can work on our personality to help the psychic being come forward. I will not cover the entire book, but I will try to take up a few relevant themes so that we benefit from this book also, and we take note of some of the specific examples he gives. One section I have taken from this book relates to purification of our nature. This is an important subject. Purification of emotions, purification of thoughts, purification of our behavior, a certain purification of our reactions. We just saw, no, how many do's and don'ts Mother has given us. In this section on purification, there's actually 2 sections. I'm taking up only one. The authors differentiate purification from outer layers of the being towards the inner layers of the being. How do we change our outer behavior so that the psychic can come forward? This is the purification of outer to the inner layers. In another chapter, they take up inner to the outer layers. We'll worry about that later. Basically, outer to inner means how do we change our behavior? Inner to outer means how do we work on letting the inner light come out? And the author, who is soaked in the philosophy of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, when he talks of purification from outer to inner layers of being, he brings out a few steps. First step is self-observation. Become aware of your inner being and outer being. We covered it in detail in the first talk. Please go through that talk again. We spent 20 to 25 minutes on the inner being in that talk. So this is the first observation, self-observation. The second step that he speaks about is vigilance. Constant vigilance. In other words, a person who chooses to attain self-realization in this life, a person who wants to get in touch with his Atma, a person who wants to have the light of Atma shine forth in this life, as a part of purification of his nature, he has to develop constant vigilance. He or she forsakes the right to behave as an ordinary person would behave. Mother, somewhere she says, Sri Aurobindo is a gentleman, I am not. Somebody tried to correct Sri Aurobindo's English while editing. She was very irritated and she said, tell them Sri Aurobindo is a gentleman, I am not. So Mother sometimes gives us sentences which are like a hammer on our head. Regarding vigilance, Mother says, he who is not vigilant is already dead. He who is not vigilant is already dead, which means, but basically, forget about spiritual progress. Forget about spirituality if you are not conscious and vigilant. We have to develop a pattern of vigilance. In integral yoga, not much emphasis is seen in the literature of Mother and Sri Aurobindo or in the talks of sadhaks on this aspect of vigilance. When we go to the traditional path of Vedanta, vigilance has a very, very strong role to play in the preliminary disciplines. Anyway, Mother, as usual, she has very, very different insights on vigilance. Normally, what do we mean by vigilance? Vigilance means we should be careful not to fall down. That is what we all remember. But Mother has something different to share. To be vigilant is not merely to resist what pulls you downward, but above all, to be alert in order not to lose any opportunity to progress. Not to lose any opportunity to progress. So one, you try to be vigilant that you don't lower your consciousness, but also any opportunity to overcome a weakness, resist a temptation, any opportunity to learn something, to correct something, to master something. If you are vigilant, you change each circumstance of your life, each action, each movement into an occasion for coming nearer to the goal. So beautiful. So Mother is giving us a caution. And she says, it is not only to avoid the pitfalls, but actually to look at every opportunity to grow in consciousness, to resist a weakness, to master something, to correct something. And she points out, the first step towards overcoming these weaknesses is to stop your action. It is not to purify the mind, purify the vital, all that will come later. Don't act, don't succumb to that temptation. If you decide you want to overcome a weakness, what are you to do? You make an effort to change it. The effort to change it in the science of living is called purification. That is why Nielsche's words, that is why he's saying purification is important. This purification can be done starting from the outer layers of our being by changing the outer nature. So don't act. Stop yourself from those actions, from those words, so that gradually our outer nature can receive psychic influence. And Nielshe points out here, he gives various examples. I suggest you go through these sections. He talks about how to work on physical weaknesses with some examples, cleanliness, physical habits, vital weaknesses. How do you work with people you can't get along with? Mental weaknesses, how do you identify your prejudice, your constant, the standard pattern of reaction? He talks about all that. And Mother also says there is a positive side for all of these efforts of building up purification. Nielshe's words, the positive side is to build up in yourself quality that is opposite to the weakness. Build up the positive quality. A good tool for eliminating the negative side is to engage in a positive, active inner dialogue. The Mother says, you have to first admit your weaknesses and then talk to them with patience. As if you talk to a child who is naughty. The Mother's words, if by an effort of will you manage to make even a very tiny part of your being admit that I am mistaken, I should not be like that, I should not do that. If you manage to make it admit, in other words, that inner conversation, it begins by hurting you very much. But then when you hold on firmly, it immediately opens up something. A flood of light enters. So this is that inner dialogue that Nielshe was talking about. Can we look at ourselves and purify us using these methods? So these are some of the guidelines that have been given in this chapter of purification in this workbook. We have covered the main themes in the chapter 4 of the emergence of the psychic being. We talked of individualization. We talked of interiorization. We talked of concentration. So we've covered a little more than our regular syllabus by taking purification in a little more detail. We are now at 5 minutes past 8. We have tried to hold meditations as a part of our sessions. We can either do a question and answer session now or meditation now. I think we can proceed with meditation because today I would like to take up a meditation on the psychic being, which I have kind of been wanting to do for a long time, but I thought we will wait till the preliminary meditations are done so that the internalizing process, the interiorization process we already did in the meditations to a certain extent. We will do the meditation on the psychic being now. It is now 8:05. For about 5 minutes, I will read what this meditation is about in Mother's words. Meanwhile, you can do the preliminaries to prepare, trying to keep your cell phones away from you, perhaps closing the door, sitting comfortably, relaxing your neck and shoulders. These kind of things you can do, and I'll start reading the lines that will be a part of our meditation today. First, you can understand it, then we can go through the meditation. The Mother acknowledges, in fact, even I have seen it in my own experience when I conduct meditation classes, that it is easier to stay calm in the mind rather than concentrate in the heart. But the Mother says, for these purposes of psychic being, it is better to concentrate in the heart. If you concentrate there deeply enough, it is there that you enter into contact with the psychic for the first time. So she advises us to concentrate in our heart and go deeper and deeper. If one succeeds in this, then when everything is over, when one comes out of meditation, sometime later, usually not immediately, from within the being, something new emerges in the consciousness, a new understanding, a new appreciation of things, a new attitude in life, in short, a new way of being. This is very important to understand what she is saying here. Many people, when we try to concentrate on the silence in the mind, they always say, no, there is too much noise, too many thoughts, we can't sit, we can't meditate, we are falling asleep. But as one persists, initially, maybe 95% we are not meditating, 5% we are in a state of calm. Gradually, we can come to 10% there is disturbance, 90% there is calm. The same thing happens when we go towards the meditation at the heart level. Initially, it may seem, oh, I'm not able to concentrate, I'm not able to stay there, I'm not able to go through, it is a little difficult. But gradually, as we do this, Mother says, what happens? When one comes out of meditation, sometime later, not immediately, maybe 2 days later, 5 days later, maybe if you do this regularly after 10 days, from within the being, something new emerges in the consciousness, a new understanding, a new appreciation of things, a new attitude in life, in short, a new way of being. So let us not be discouraged that we are not seeing something or feeling something right away. It is a matter of regular practice. And coming to practice, I must say something here. Please use the time between the sessions to meditate regularly. We are on a long journey. Please use this time to deepen the meditations. If you successfully meditate for 6 classes or 7 classes, which is 6 months or 7 months, even 3-4 times a week, it will take us much closer to our inner being and our inmost being. Couple of more passages. It is always better for meditation to try and concentrate in a center. The center of aspiration, one may say, the place where the flame of aspiration burns. To gather in all the energies there. In other words, the energies are scattered everywhere. Pull them all into the inside. And if possible, to obtain an attentive silence, as though one wanted to listen to something extremely subtle. Something that demands complete attention, a complete concentration. Concentration means gathering of energies into our heart region. And then not to move at all. And she's not only talking about physical movement, not to think, no mental movements, not to stir. And make that movement of opening so as to receive all that can be received. A complete stillness, a complete silence. So as we go through meditation, I may read these sentences once or twice. There is another passage of the Mother, which many of us, we consider this to be the meditation of the psychic being. The Mother says, when I ask you to go deep down within yourselves, some of you will concentrate on a sensation, sensation in the heart region. Some people feel electrical pulses. Some people feel a little electricity pass either in the front or the back of the chest also. Because the psychic being is deep inside. Some people approach it from the front. Some people find it easier approaching from the back. So one can feel a sensation, or sometimes some visualizations can come. What kind of visualizations? The Mother says, one may have an impression of going deep down into a well, step by step into a deep well. They may go down farther and farther, deeper and deeper. Some others can have, I'm just telling you here, these are not the quotation now. Some people can have a feeling of going through a tunnel, into a cave, These are the images that sometimes we may have when we go into the inner parts of our being. Sometimes they may reach a door. Now again, I'm reading the mother. They sit down before the door with a will to enter. Sometimes the door opens. Then they go in and see a kind of hall or room or cave or something. From there, if they go on, they may come to another door and again stop. With an effort, the door opens and you go further. And if this is done with enough persistence and one can continue the experience, there comes a time when one finds oneself in front of a door which has a special kind of solidity or solemnity, means you feel a sense of sacredness in that door. And with a great effort of concentration, the door opens and one suddenly enters a hall of clarity, of light, and then one has the experience of contact with one's soul. So this is what we call the meditation of the psychic being. Among other visualizations, one may see a flickering flame inside the heart, deep inside the heart, maybe pink in color, white in color. These are all the visualizations that one can have. But this is an important meditation from the point of view of reaching into the inmost being. So now, let us gently sit for the meditation. It is now 8:15. It may take us around 20 minutes. If you need to visit the bathroom, you can do so. If you need to stretch yourself, you may do so. If you need to rotate your head, you've been sitting for a while, rotate the shoulders, maybe stretch back the shoulders and release the stress in the shoulders. Rotation of the head can help release stress in the neck region. Gently, slowly. Turn away from a light if there is any light falling on your face. You can now close the door or reduce any disturbance. The posture is the first thing we look at. Feet firmly on the ground. If you are sitting in Padmasana or something else, that's a different thing. For those on the chairs, firmly on the ground. The hands can be on the thighs, preferably facing the ceiling. Adjust the hands. Either they can be, the palms can be on your thighs, or if you want, if your chair has armrests, you can be on your armrests. Let there be no undue pressure on your elbow, which can distract you later. Then we look at the trunk and the position of the head. To be erect, we talk about the back of the head and the base of the spine being in a straight line. We push the shoulders gently back so that the chest expands. The eyes are closed, the head is erect. It is neither falling forward nor is it going back. It is just at the right place it needs to be. Observe your body, scan your body to see if there are any pockets of blocked energy or stiffness. And better release that stiffness, because to sit 15 minutes going inside means the outside should be comfortable. If there is any tension in your calves or your ankles, release it. If your wrists are stiff for sitting for too long, just rotate them a couple times. Settle down into a good solid posture of stability. If you're wearing eyeglasses, it is advisable to remove the eyeglasses. You can just listen, keep the eyeglasses in a place for easy retrieval, because otherwise it draws your energy towards the sensation where the eyeglasses touch the face and the nose. Posture stable, let us turn our attention to the breath. Those of you who have any health conditions, please do not hold your breath. Don't do kumbhaka. Bring your attention to the inner breath and outer breath, inhalation and exhalation. Stabilize your mind. Do not let it run in 10 different directions. Just focus on your breath, in and out. And as you are doing in, deepen your in breath and prolong your out breath. As you deepen your in breath, if you are sensitive, you should be able to feel the breath flow in different parts of your body. Most obviously, the chest cavity and the abdominal cavity expand. But sometimes you can feel your breath move in the base of your spine, the trunk of your body, the back, the neck, the back of the neck, shoulders. You can feel the breath movement in all these regions as you deepen your breath and you prolong your exhalation. Forget your body for some time and just go with the breath. Just become aware of your entire body at once while you're doing the inhalation and exhalation. Don't let your mind run around. Visualize yourself as a throbbing statue and follow the breath in the statue. Observe any tingling sensations you may have at your fingertips or at the top of your head. Let us do a gentle scan from the top of the head, 2 inches above, bring it down to the crown of the head. Head, nose, mouth, throat, Become aware of the natural silence inside of you. Witness that silence. Just silence in your head. It's right there. Continue from the throat, the shoulders, the chest, the abdomen region, the navel, right to the base of the spine. Become aware of the silence that is in the trunk of your body. Scan yourself. Complete silence. Scan your being for silence from the top of your head to the base of your spine and your hands and everything, the upper part of the body. Remain in that silence for some time. Be a witness to that silence. Slowly bring your attention to the center of your chest. Concentrate in a center, the center of aspiration, the place where the flame of aspiration burns. Gather all the energies there. Deeper and deeper into the chest center. No effort, gentle movement of awareness. There may be a sensation, a vibration, a throbbing. Inside is the psychic flame. Let us gently journey towards it. Maybe steps going down into the well, going deeper and deeper inside of oneself, or a passage, like movement inside a cave. Feel the vibration of silence as you go through. Let not the thoughts carry you away. Focus back in your chest and keep going deeper and deeper. Become familiar with your deeper self, with your innermost self, or the journey towards your innermost self. Feel these vibrations. Calmness, the silence, the movement towards the flame of aspiration deep inside the heart. It's slowing down of thoughts and emotions. Feel these vibrations. Make them your own. In the middle of the day, if you remember these, it will re-establish your inner contact. Slowly, take a deep breath. Become aware of the inner movements of breath. Gently scan the silence in your body one more time from top to bottom and bottom to top. Recognize the silence that exists inside your being spontaneously and naturally. Become aware of the silence around you, the silence that is vibrant and that fills the room around you. It's always there, but we don't note it when we are lost in our thoughts and phone calls and emotions and all these things. There is a natural silence within, and there is always beautiful silence without, the silence in which a few noises may move. This awareness of the silence in the room allows us to widen ourselves. It widens our being. And widening brings stability. Become aware of it. Be one with it. Take another deep breath and become aware of the extremities of your body, the toes, the fingertips. Your feet slightly to regain sensations. Maybe tighten your fist and open your fist. Renew the flow of energies there. Take another deep breath. Bring your attention to the region of your eyes. Take another breath. Become aware of your face. Shouldn't be too tight. It should be very relaxed now. Maybe a smile can help you. If you wish, and if you're in the habit of doing so, you can gently, not too harshly, not too loudly, rub your palms. And then you can touch your face or cup your eyes, whatever comes naturally to you. One can half open the eyes, maybe acclimatize to the surrounding light. Become aware of the noises around you. Become aware of the sounds around you, the movements around you, the lights around you. Try to retain the sense of silence as you are opening your eyes. Try to retain that sense of the silence inside your being and the room around you, both. Keep a hook into that awareness of complete silence around you. If we can retain that hook through the day, we will be anchored in our inner being. Slowly, once you have adjusted your eyes, you can open your eyes. Move your hands, if you will, stretch a bit. Let the body come back to its normal state. If you have any legs or feet or any other parts of your lower body that have gone to sleep, don't try to stand up immediately. Let them readjust to the blood flow and the movement. So now we have concluded around 25 minutes of meditation. The portion relating to the psychic being, we did only for a short duration of 5-7 minutes. But when you do this at home, you can expand that section of meditation, and the overall meditation duration can be 30 to 40 minutes with more time spent on the movement in the heart region. If it doesn't come naturally to you, please persist. And as Mother said, we may not know what is happening fully. Its effects will unfold over time in our consciousness and in our being. So, with that, the portion of the session today that I conduct is concluded. If you wish to leave, you can do so now. If you have any questions, you may ask now. You're open, you can open your cameras if you will. 1.5 hours is a fairly long duration. I must congratulate you on showing persistence right here for the session itself. And of course, it is a part of our journey on the psychic being. So we will be persistence there also.
Hello. Hello. This is Shakuntala speaking.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. I wanted to know, as we are improving in our meditation, the intuition which we are receiving in the process of meditation and also practice of listening to the lecture, you become aware of three things, that is past, present, and future. And you start becoming intuitive. This is my question. Is this right?
Yes. As we practice meditation with a certain regularity, preferably with the same time and if possible twice a day, as we deepen our awareness, yes, our capacity to receive intuition increases, the mental noise subsides. And as long as we pay attention to the intuition and let it come and let it guide us, if it's guiding us, that is very good. It is a natural process, but it is only a baby step. But it is a very welcome step. It is a good step. I'm glad you are sensing it. Please continue whatever that you are doing. It is working.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments, sharing?
Thank you, Srinivas Garu. As usual, the session was very informative. Like we have multiple sources now from which you've taken and then shared about it. Anybody else has any questions? Please, you can type or ask.
Perhaps we can leave the group open for a couple of days. And as we go through, you can ask questions. That is what we have done in the past. So you can ask there as well at a later time. And please continue to read the chapter, if possible, a couple of times, because these are very small chapters and we have a long gap between lectures. So please take advantage of it. Please use this time for psychic sadhana. And even otherwise, if you really need to ask anything, Kameshwari ji has been very supportive to all of us. So you can reach out to her and she can, help clarifications at other times also. So do stay in touch and keep at the work that we have all started together, the journey that we have all started together. Thank you.
Thank you. I think no more questions. We didn't get any questions. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Srinivas Garu. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Good night.